So, face reveal already in episode, I don't know, 3, 4, 5. Depends entirely upon what order I upload these in. But today we are at the Southeastern Railway Museum in Duluth, Georgia. And we're going to go look at some trains. They got a really cool model railroad in here. In fact, my Atherin CSX came from this spot. They sold it to me. They had some overstock and stuff. So, interestingly, that's small world. We got their ride-along train running in the background. I don't know if you guys can see it. But we're going to go in here, we're going to take a look at the model train, and then we're going to look at some real trains. I've got some really cool things around here. And we're just do a little walk around, do a quick little video of this spot. If you haven't been here in a year in the Atlanta area, you really got to come. It's phenomenal. Some of the stuff they have is real honest-to-goodness history. But let's go look at the model train, and then let's look at some real trains. So as you first walk in, obviously they have this all decorated for the holiday season, as we shall call it. A lot of really cool stuff here. It is an honest-to-goodness museum, so there are some interesting pieces of memorabilia out here. And it's not just railroads, it is a honest-to-goodness transportation museum. Check that out. Old taxis and stuff. But obviously trains are predominantly the focus. So they have some pretty cool buses in the back. Let's go take a look at the model train and check it out. Logo. So here's their model railroad. We'll get a quick tour of it before all the kids come back in. Everyone's kind of preoccupied with Santa at the moment. Yeah, this little cityscape. I love some of the details here. You got this cop car in the back. His lights were flashing a second ago. Must be set up on the Arduino. There's multiple Arduinos, and we'll go over that here in a moment. This little mid-19th or mid-20th century gas station in the mid-19th century would not exist. One thing that's interesting here, all these lights do not work at the moment, but I'm told that they are going to rectify that. So all of these are actually staged, so they will be functional, and they will eventually be operational. One of these tunnels is in, the other one is out, and we'll go over that here when the train gets running again. This mountain is actually pretty awesome. It hides a helix inside, which we'll discover here in a moment. And one of my favorite features right here is this little crucible car. Now, he's not running at the moment because, as stated, he is set up on an Arduino. So as the train comes through... Well, actually, the train's going now. As the train goes through, I believe, the signal here, it will actually trigger the Arduino, and this little crucible car will get going. Pretty awesome stuff. So, the train's going to come out of that tunnel, come around this whole factory setup thing here. It'll come around the factory. Little crucible train, like I said, is going to go. I love this. This is all modeled after North Georgia. Very similar to what I have planned, but this is a little more industrial than what I have planned. You can see all the coal and all that stuff here. Here comes the train. And as stated, it's going to go into this tunnel. And inside here, there's a helix. And it will actually come out right here. So it's going to go up 2 or 3 levels. It'll take a moment. And of course, we've got a little farm here on the hill and functioning radio tower. Absolutely love that. This is apparently fully blocked, so there's a point at which they can get this set up so that the green will mean the train is clear to the next block, and orange actually will limit the block, which is kind of interesting. I guess we'll follow the train around for a moment. There's a lot to see in this setup. A lot of really interesting things. But this is a rare shot where we'll actually get the full experience of the train. Into that tunnel. And you can't really see it, but when it went into the tunnel, the little HON 30 came alive, and the train comes back around out here. Very cool stuff. And it's going to go back through the city and back into the tunnel and up the helix. Or I guess technically down the helix, I suppose. And then as stated here in a moment, it'll actually come back out down here. So this is well planned. It's actually button operated at the moment, set up on DC, though they do have a DCC circuit. So very interesting. So continuing our tour, you see down here, just a little, this is more or less probably just storage area more than anything else. But the train, here it comes again, actually comes down here. And there's a little spot right here where it'll got a little piece of dead track where you got to hit a button and then the train will start going again. Well, I say that button right down there. So we now have this Fulton. This is Fulton Cotton Mill, Lost Mountain, Georgia. I'm imagining this is probably modeled after something real. I really don't know, but I'm guessing, just considering the amount of detail that's already in this setup. Oh, it's really awesome. Let's get over here now. You can see, if you look really closely, they're welding inside, or quote-unquote welding, inside this building right here. And this is actually another Arduino-controlled feature, I guess you could say. When the train goes in this tunnel here, now it's going to come around long ways. It's going to travel around this way. And when it goes in that tunnel, it actually triggers an Arduino that triggers this thing to operate. And this train is normally sitting here on this siding right here, and then pulls onto the turntable, and then pulls into the shop for service. And once the service is done, it'll actually pull forward over there to the coal bin. And here it goes. And so normally when the train would be on the siding here, that action of it going into the tunnel would operate it. So a lot of just very interesting details here. But one of my absolute favorite things about this whole rig they've got here, there's a short line here, this is HON 30, I believe, because I believe that's N-scale track. And this is another Arduino controlled option. And when the train goes, I believe, out of the tunnel back there, so it comes around here and it goes in this upper tunnel. I believe either going into that tunnel or coming out of the other tunnel back there will actually trigger this little guy to go around the track. And that's actually, it is HO scale, even though it's on N scale track. This is, if you're not familiar, this is called HON 30. And HON 30 literally is just a narrow gauge designed to run on, here comes the main train.
There goes the train. He's got two engines.
And now, there we go. So you can see that lights up, and then the narrow gauge should go into the tunnel. Let's see what he does here. So it does eventually go, I swear. So that's pretty much your tour. I mean, there are so many fine details. It would take forever. Oh, see, here's the steam engine go back on the siding, and next time the train comes around, it'll trigger it to do it again. But just so much detail, so much work goes into this. And this is more or less what I'd like to capture, and then some, frankly, in what we're going to wind up building for the train room. So, very, very cool. Looking forward to doing this some more. And as we find more of these, we'll definitely cover them on the channel. But let's go look at some real trains and go have some fun, and let's go do some of that. A couple things in here that we did not discuss. Here's a neat one. This is DeWitt Clinton. Now, I've got the Bachmann DeWitt Clinton at home. This is a really cool one. But this one, actually, if you look, the track is basically like a cable that runs back and forth. So very cool. It looks like it's operating. And they've got actual outfits. They've got, these are the chef's uniforms and conductor's uniforms. Oh, here's a neat one. That is, what is that, O gauge? Probably O gauge. I believe that is ON30. That is ON30 because it's HO track. And a G-scale big boy, which is about the biggest thing you can acquire. That is a massive train. And a bunch of other stuff over here. Some general lights and memorabilia. Some real old O-scale stuff. Proper Lionel. This room is mostly models, but they have some other really cool stuff over here too. Here we go. G-scale Southern Crescent. Good times. They actually have one of the locomotives here. We'll go look at that here in a minute too. Lots of really neat stuff. Here's one of my personal favorites. This is a 1923 Heisler locomotive. This thing's really neat. If you're not familiar with how these work, which I'd imagine most people on this channel probably are, but this is an articulated type of locomotive. It doesn't use traditional rods and traction wheels. It has these... The pistons are on the side rather than the front. And you can kind of see down here all the action. It drives this motor, a lot like a V-twin motorcycle almost. And drives where the universal joint used to be, and that would then drive the front wheels, and there was one back here. You can see it right there, universal joint, that would actually still linked up, would drive the rear wheels. And that way these things could take really tight radii. Let's get a shot of the front again. So these were designed for mostly short lines and taking really tight radiuses. And what's interesting about this one is still standard gauge. And most of these, a lot of these in fact, were actually narrow gauge. So to have one that is standard gauge is pretty much a treat. This is a really cool one. I believe this used to belong to, it says right here, Campbell Limestone. And there's a whole story here, but the Heisler locomotive works, 1923, two-truck, two-cylinder, coal-burning steam locomotive. Just a neat way to do the same basic thing, a lot like a Shea or a Climax or something of that nature. Very, very, very cool. I always like this one. This is easily one of my favorites here. So this is kind of neat. So they have a fruit reefer down there, old one, but this tool car is a new addition. They used to have a milk car here, and it's actually sitting outside, probably for refurb. But this is a new addition. I've not seen this here before. So let's go take a look. So this says here it is a electric generator. So that's actually fairly modern. Sometimes they would actually burn steam to make electricity, and we actually know where there's one of those steam cars sitting right now. But let's step up in here and see. So there would be our generator right there. Circuit breaker up there. Very neat. I would imagine this probably would have been filled with more than just this. You'd probably have a lot of wiring and a lot of, obviously, people working. There's a boiler right there and whatnot. So I would imagine this would have been more active than it is now. But, I mean, obviously people, but I'm also saying wiring and whatnot. A lot of interesting stuff up here, though. I love seeing these types of things. Now here's a really cool one. I've not seen this one before. This must be a recent addition to their lineup. This is a Seaboard bunk car. But notice it says this was built in 1930 by the Seaboard Airline Railroad. So, not 100% certain what that would have. I'd have to read more about this. But this is literally bunks where people working on the train would sleep and stay. Obviously very empty now, but nonetheless, a neat addition. This is literally a sleeping car for people that work on the railroad. Very cool. And owned by an airline/railroad, which is very, very interesting. So this one is actually set up to go into. So let's go step inside. My little one's inside here, but You can actually hear them probably. Let's go inside. This is the inside of a caboose. Pretty neat stuff. Obviously, this is where the crew would sit. Not the most comfy thing in history, but they were working, so you know, it is what it is. You've got minimal bathroom accommodations, hot plate, all the monitor amenities, hot and cold running doors. So yeah, good times. That was your accommodations on a caboose, and a break if you so happen to need it. So going down the center here, these are a bunch of Pullman cars. You can actually walk through these most of the time. I believe they're blocked off right now for COVID. But they do a pretty good job of restoring these. Now, they're not perfect inside by any stretch, but they are, you know, they're definitely showing their age for the most part. But they're really neat replications. But what a lot of people miss it down the center here is just some absolute history. So we've got some signal lanterns here, oiling apparatuses, and even there's a spittoon and a payroll log. So pretty neat stuff. And you can see a lot of these are designed to go into and enjoy, but the last couple of years have kind of spoiled that. As you can see, a lot of these are designed to go into and enjoy, but the age of COVID and whatnot has really kind of sullied that, sadly. But hopefully we'll get to again soon. Very cool stuff. Now this is pretty neat right here. This is all indicative of some of the stuff that they would have had here when this was Atlanta Locomotive Works. It's got a bunch of old equipment, but I think the funniest thing about all this was right there. 17 days without a reportable injury. Notice that's a reportable injury. We have 6 days to go to win the gold. We have worked 2. 8 days is our goal. So, yeah, working conditions a little bit different back in the day. Here are some pistons that you would have had in the locomotive itself, and it shows you here the piston rings. Not unlike a vehicle, not unlike a car, by a long shot. Very, very similar. But nonetheless, neat to see everything kind of disassembled here. And of course, signals. All different types of signals. And what's really neat is you can actually... it teaches you how they all work. What do you guys think? We should probably get something like this. We should find one of these to operate the layout at home. My wife would murder me. Worth. This is one of the really interesting pieces of history they have here. This is the old Savannah Atlanta 750. You really just don't get a concept for how massive steam engines are until you're just right next to one. But this thing is phenomenal. Absolutely massive and huge. And of course, this is where Santa's going to be sitting later on today. And it's just phenomenal to think people used to operate this. And what's really awesome, you can't right now, but when, you know, pre-COVID and all that, you could actually get up in here, you could take a look at it. They had sights, they had sounds. Used to be. You could actually get up in there and check it out. Can't right now, but we'll come back some point in time post-COVID and take a look at all that. But it's all restored. It's not running, but it is definitely in good enough condition that you get a great idea for just what it was like back in the day. Here's a neat one. CSX 8954. This is a GP... it's a GP unit. I don't know which one, I'll be honest with you. But very interesting. Very donated to the museum. Hilariously came in on a Norfolk Southern line. But very, very cool. This actually is still fully powered, still working. I mean, and you can see it's in pretty respectable condition, all things considered. You know, obviously there's some patina. There's always going to be some. But they still operate this thing from time to time. Obviously, they just move it around to keep it functioning so it doesn't degrade or anything like that. But a very cool addition to their lineup. And you can kind of see when you stand here. We've actually been in this. I took my... oh, boy, you want an adventure. These railings, you can't really tell, but they're about 3.5 feet high. They're enough for an adult male. A 3-year-old toddler up on that railing, as I was an idiot and I tried to do, is quite treacherous, and they can literally just slide out through the side of it. Thankfully, I had both hands on them, so it didn't happen. But yeah, not the ideal circumstance. But it was really neat nonetheless. We got to go up in the cabin here, and we got to go see how the train worked, and Daddy got to navigate coming up and down the ladder with a 3-year-old who was screaming. It was a lot of fun, but nonetheless a really cool unit, really cool addition to the museum. Just another piece of history. Now here's something that's really interesting that's going to come into play on the track that we're building shortly. This is what's called girder rail, and you'll notice that it's not really, I'll get close here, it's got like a divot, and this was to kind of make streetcar tracks and things like that. We're going to use it for a cable car, which you'll see soon enough. And yeah, this is just an easy way to get these things cleaned out without having to run, full-size track. It's a very light-duty track. It's a very interesting addition here, but they would have run these on, inside these pagodas to make them easy to clean and stuff like that when they don't need to, get up under the train too much. But a little more modern touch, but very cool. Girder rail. I don't think we can actually get a good shot of it at home, but we'll talk about it some more when we build that portion of the track. Oh boy, if you've ever been to Atlanta, you know this. Even if you travel through, you know what this is. Please move to the center of the vehicle and away from the doors. I mean, this is technically a train. It sort of. It's got illusion broken. It has tires, if you didn't know. I mean, it was obvious if you've ever looked out the window. But yeah, it's more truck than train. But it's a fully electric train-ish. Actually has couplers. Proper, true. I forget what these are called. Some German word. But actually has couplers on it. If you've ever flown through Atlanta, you definitely know the inside of this. But yeah, they got the plane train here. So you can see here, there's a lot of just general Pullman-type cars and things like that. Just really neat stuff, and usually these are open to go through, but once again with COVID, it's not really a thing. But Southern Railway has a lot of stuff here, and we're gonna get to that here at the very, very end. I think that's gonna be the last thing we're gonna take a look at is the Southern Crescent, because that is to me just the greatest thing here. But we'll go take a look. Here's a pretty cool one. A proper RPO. RPO stands for Railway Post Office. And this one's really cool. They actually have the, normally this is inside, so they actually have the mail crane with the bag and everything, and these kind of big doors, actually probably these doors since that's where the crane is operated, they would have a little arm that comes out and literally just grabs the bag off. This is how mail used to get delivered. One of the things I like about coming here is we can always get ideas for stuff to do on the model. So, yeah. Oh man, here's a rare shot. Here's a rare shot of the Chattahoochee Valley. This is a 280. This is a very light duty train. Interestingly, a little fun fact is if you see a steam engine that has smaller wheels like this, smaller wheels are actually for freight. So you see like a 280, this would be probably a smaller freight engine. The larger, fewer wheels, those are for faster running. These would provide more torque. Larger wheels would provide faster running, and those would be for passenger trains. Normally this would be filled up with the buses, like I said before, so you wouldn't see any of these things. So this one's open, but it does not look like the dome car is open. Oh no. No, I don't think they don't want us in there right now, but there would be normally the entrance for the dome car, and these would be opened up. But it looks like they don't actually want us in here right now. But really neat, really cool. And once again, when we get back here, after COVID restrictions and all that stuff, we'll actually be able to see a lot more. But this one's really cool inside. They have the grand staircase going up to the dome and everything. It's so cool. So if we go on down here to the end, it is a proper, true observation car. And obviously you see the dome up there and everything. Very, very, very cool piece. All right, let's take a look inside this one. Ooh. Hey, this one is nice by comparison. This one's far more modern. Watch for slack action. Basically, they're talking about in the knuckles because you can easily damage knuckles with too much slack. Here's where people would sit. There's a forward-facing seat, rear-facing seat. I would imagine forward-facing seat is probably the most important. I don't know why they don't have two forward-facing, but it is what it is. Once again, wash basin, some lockers, you know, very minimal provisions, but it, you know, you're here to work. Normally, all these buses are actually lined up over in this little paddock area, but they've actually been filming a movie over here. So they've moved them all out, and now they've got them kind of lined up here. But there's something really cool I want to show you guys. So obviously these are just buses. They're nothing too crazy. But this orange one right here is really, really interesting. This one has pantographs. And obviously some little contact pickups in the back and whatnot. This bus was actually the transition point between the original Atlanta streetcars and the modern buses of today. Kind of as we see over here. Got some MARTA buses like I would have ridden on. It's a very modern MARTA bus right there. In fact, those probably still run in the city. And that was after the natural gas conversion, so neat. But this right here, originally, Atlanta had an extensive streetcar network, much bigger than we have now. You have to remember, this city was a massive rail hub for a long time, obviously before Delta and Eastern and any of those. So, this pantograph on top would connect to the existing catenary lines where the streetcars were. And obviously, being a bus, you know, it would... basically, this is the Tesla of its day, more or less. This would shuttle people through town, and it was a little more convenient and easier to use than the streetcars, required less maintenance and a little bit lighter weight and whatnot. So these were the segue between where we had streetcars and where we are today.